Today I'd like to continue our journey through the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 4. And we're at that point in chapter 4 where we see Jesus calling the apostles, and their response is immediate. They kind of throw down their nets, their fishing nets, and they're going to go and they're going to follow Jesus. Now, what do we notice about this story? We see that three of the four, Simon, James, and John, become distinguished among the disciples by a closer relationship to Jesus. It was very interesting that these initial disciples that were called, at this point they were not given the designation apostles, but really just disciples, followers. They were called initially, but out of that initial call, they develop a kind of very close relationship with Jesus. One of the things that you might ponder about that is, well, you've got Simon and Andrew are brothers, James and John are brothers, and these three seem close. What about Andrew? He seems a little bit left out. How did he feel about this? And we never really see that addressed in the scriptures. But that's one of the thoughts you might have, that, well, Andrew and Simon are called first, then James and John are called, and then Jesus spends a lot of time seemingly with these three. They're with him for the transfiguration, they're with him for the agony in the garden. He seems to have a more intimate relationship with these three than with the other nine. Also interesting is the communal nature of discipleship. That discipleship seems very much to be rooted in the sense of community, because here we have the initial call, and there are two sets of brothers that are called. So there's already a bond between these four, and they were also bonded in the sense that they were also involved in the same occupation. They were all fishermen. So again, another bonding aspect here initially in terms of the call of the disciples. After this initial call, Jesus sees these two other brothers, James, the son of Zebedee, his brother John. They were in a boat. They're mending their nets, and Jesus calls them as well. So now we have four that have been called. Immediately, they leave their boat, and they leave their father. How did the father feel? He's lost two very valuable employees. We don't know how old the father is. James and John are younger, maybe a little bit more energy, a little bit more ability to do the work, but yet they go and they follow Jesus. And maybe there was a sense that Zebedee, the father, knew Jesus and was on board with this. He was okay with it. That would be fine. But again, we don't know some of the dynamics involved. We just know that the response is immediate, which is very interesting. Why wasn't there a sense of, well, I'll think about it. Let me talk to Dad about it. Let's see who can work and cover our shifts here on the boat. No, the response is very immediate to the call, which shows you how powerful this call of Jesus is when it comes, that it really strikes these men as very important, as very significant, as something they should definitely do with their lives, follow Jesus. And of course, it was a time of great expectation. In this era, many of the Jewish people were expecting a Messiah to come to rescue them from their situation, which was a very difficult situation, being ruled by the Romans. And so they were hopeful that somebody would rise up and really establish this new kingdom. So again, that might have played into it, the fact that Jesus seemed to have this aura about him, this charism about him, this ability to speak and to attract others. Whatever it was in terms of Jesus' call, it was something that struck them very deeply, and the response was very immediate, and they just left everything behind. Very similar to Mark this passage of the call, Mark chapter 1. In Matthew, we see it in chapter 4. Mark right off the bat in chapter 1. Mark also mentions not only that they left their father and they put down their nets, but also that they left the hired men. So again, that fills out the picture a little bit more. Maybe there were others who were hired to help, so that Zebedee and those who were fishing with Andrew and Simon were not left all by themselves. They had other help, other assistance in terms of the occupation and getting the fish in and all of that was so important for the economy and for the survival of their families. It's noted that they leave everything. And I think that is extremely significant, to leave everything. In terms of following Jesus, in terms of being a disciple, I think many of us would say, yes, I'm a disciple, I'm a follower, I love Jesus. But when it comes to leaving everything, that's the real challenge. And there are certain things that we might not want to leave, certain ways of life, certain habits that we have, certain comforts that we're used to. And to leave everything behind, to take nothing in terms of finances, in terms of belongings, in terms of family. But to leave everything behind shows really, I think, an absolute dedication to Jesus, complete giving over of oneself to Jesus, a holding nothing back, which really is tremendous when you think about it, the ability to really do that, to leave everything. Simon's brother is not mentioned in Mark, as he's mentioned here. The disciples' response seems to be motivated simply by the invitation of Jesus. And I think this brings out for us in ministry the importance of an invitation. Many times I think we might be reluctant to give invitations to other people. We might think, well, maybe I'm burdening them, maybe it's too much, maybe I shouldn't ask. But I have found, and I think it's paralleled here in the scriptures, that people like invitations. They seem honored by the invitation, honored that you took the time to give an invitation. So I think rather than be reluctant to give an invitation, it's important that we do invite people. And if they say no, of course, they're free to say yes or no. That's fine. And we shouldn't be upset by that. But many times, people will respond to certain things and say, well, no one ever asked me. No one ever invited me. I didn't think that was open to me, that particular ministry. So again, the importance of the invitation, we see here Jesus modeling that, the importance of inviting others into ministry.